You are listening to the Starter Girls podcast with Jennifer Loading. Whether you are starting a project, starting a business, starting a brand, or starting a movement, we are here to talk about it. And the Starter Girls podcast is brought to you by Walt Mills Photographer of Glad Models Agency. If you are in the Dallas or surrounding area and you're looking for some photography, check out Walt Mills. You can learn more about him and his work at photosbywalt.com. And with that, we are going to get started. Today is a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, my friends, I'm super excited to welcome Kim Muench to the Starter Girls podcast. Welcome,
Hello.
Kim.
I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell our listeners a little bit about you, and then we're going to get started here. So Kim is a JI, did I say that right?
Yes.
Institute for Parenting certified parent coach who specializes in working with mothers of adolescents. So that's between the age of 10 and 25. She's got that noted for me here. Knowing that moms are the emotional compass in their families, Kim is passionate about educating, supporting, and encouraging them to raise their children with intention and guidance rather than fear and control. Kim's 3+ decades parenting her 5 children and years of coaching other parents empowers her to lead her clients into healthier, happier, more functional relationships with compassion and without judgment. Her work includes one-on-one coaching via Zoom, writing, speaking, and small group workshops on a variety of topics related to parenting teens and young adults. Kim facilitates a monthly support and education meetup for moms of teens worldwide called Moms Empowering Moms Supportive Community. She's also a published author who began by writing a book about her own parenting journey in 2011, My Mother's Footprints, a story of faith, calm, courage, patience, and grace. And Kim is currently working on her second book. Am I correct? So welcome. Super excited to chat with you today. So I want to jump into this because our listeners are going to be like, okay, so how did she get to this? How did this happen? So take us back a little bit. Like, what led you to this, where you are today? Because we all know we don't come out of the womb this way, right?
That's right. That's right. Actually, I would say that this really started with my own parenting wake-up call in May of 2008. My oldest son called me from across the country and said, I don't remember the last 3 days of my life. I'm recovering from an alcohol binge and I need help. And this, because this isn't the first time. So I can't say that like I was completely shocked. It was like, as a parent, like I had some feelings. Something wasn't right kind of thing. But that was really the first of a couple of years of real ups and downs for him, for us as a family, for myself as a parent, and really the instigator to my deciding to look at the way that I had been parented, the way that I was parenting my kids, and to want to do better and learn more. So I immersed myself. I went back to school, I went back to college, I immersed myself in learning about parenting, and I really kind of, I think, got stuck in love with the adolescent years. I mean, at this point, my kids are between 15 and 33, and my oldest son, who was my wake-up call, is now 10 years sober. But all of that, going through that, and knowing that I was going to be in the teen phase of parenting for such a long time, that, really inspired me to want to niche what I do. I also think that parents kind of white knuckle it through the teen years. And I think it's really important that we develop good connections with our kids during these years, because this is a lifelong job we have as parents.
Right.
So
Right. There's no lie to that. So how old are, what's the difference between the oldest and the youngest now?
I think that they're 17. I'm really not good
so
at math, but I think they're like 17 years. I remember nursing her in the middle of the night and my oldest coming home from prom and having his tux jacket over and thinking to myself, holy crap, I'm like here and here and all in between.
Yes. Well, in some ways, I think that's kind of neat though, because it's almost like you've got these older kids too that can be, I don't know if I say like influencers, but also in a lot of ways have impact on these younger ones. Yes. My kids, my oldest and my youngest are 8 years apart, and I thought that was really crazy. I mean, I joke about it because they're all election year babies. When we got to the last one, we were like, election came around, we're like, we're done. I'm not having any more. So I admire you for having as many as you did, because I was like, the last one, if he's not a boy, we're finished. I'm not doing this anymore. And for me, it was just, I didn't like being pregnant. I just didn't like that part of it. So, but I agree with you 100% on the being present, because my youngest right now is 16 and he's the last one, my oldest has moved out and I think maybe getting married I'm hearing something, maybe getting married. And my middle is off in Southern Arkansas in college. And so I've got this last one home, and he's probably, I say, probably in some ways my most challenging because he's the most vocal, probably a lot like me. And so we argue a lot. And so there's a lot of this when you talk about like white knuckling and really just trying to get through all those things. So I think what you're doing is really, really awesome in terms of the coaching and just what you're doing for people. I'm trying to find my notes here so I know where we're going. So let me ask you kind of a fun question, because like I said earlier, I feel like our paths, life circumstances lead us in different directions. I mean, some people, I feel like they come out of the womb and they know exactly what they're going to do when they grow up. They think they do, right? But I think often we always evolve into something more. I do think that there are always these telltale signs, as you and I were talking off of the just before the show started, that I used to get in trouble for talking all the time. Nobody ever knew that I would be talking because I was an introvert and I was actually pretty shy for a long time. And so here we are, like 40-something years later, and we're doing something completely different, So was there anything in your childhood that you feel like impacted who you are today as an individual?
Absolutely. I would say for the most part, I had a very normal upbringing, suburban, yada, yada, mom stayed home kind of, upbringing. I have 2 younger brothers, but I got pregnant with my son at the age of 18. And so I was a freshman in college, and that totally changed my life in terms of having to grow up really fast. And also going against my parents' best wishes for the things that they wanted in my life. So it was definitely one of the first steps that I had to take to become a stronger individual. And I really feel like when I look back at life and I talk to parents about this, it's our challenges that help us grow as human beings. And so we tend to, as parents, want to protect our kids from all of the things that could happen to them. And the reality is sometimes those things need to happen in order to grow us up. So that's one of the things that I work with parents on, is that, they want to protect them, they want to fix everything. And that's not always, sometimes our kids have to go through things we would never want them to in order to become who they're meant to be.
100%. I'm thinking about helicopter parenting right now because no, you're so right. And I think, like I was thinking even about like some of the things that we've had to go through with this whole thing with the pandemic and everything. And just, like my middle child being in college and then being sent home. And that was a lot of really rough things, her having to come back from being in college in our house for almost 5 months, and how do we navigate that?
Yes,
it was hard.
Yes,
it was hard.
That's
true. And then I've got the little one at home, and it's like all these little things that you worry about all the time, and now we're in a different time and people are worrying about more things. And so how do you teach people? It's really let them say, hey, you've got to back off a little bit because you can't protect your kids from everything. You're not going to be able to. And I agree with you 100%. You do have to be able to let them have their own experiences, because that's how they grow. It's how we grow as adults.
And I think in terms of COVID, I think one of the most important things that we can really learn from this is how we need to take care of ourselves as parents, because we will not have the emotional bandwidth or the ability to stay calm and have patience for all the things we need to if we're not taking good care of ourselves. So I think that's one of my main messages in this time is, don't be so focused on what your child is missing out on, but this really is a time when you need to take care of you so that you are emotionally attuned to whatever your kid is going through. Because lots of them are going through a lot.
Yeah, I think that is so great. We had a chiropractor on here that I don't know if you saw that one, I just aired it out, but he talked about that. I asked him some final thoughts, and we were talking about self-care being the single most, the critical thing that you can do before trying to look for anything external, is taking care of you. And I wrote about this in my book. I always refer to the mask in the airplane, that when they never tell you, put it on your neighbor, because you're no good to anybody if you're not alive and you're passed out. So I think it's the same thing with us. I think as parents, yes. And I think that when we are better, we're better as a whole to everybody, not just our kids, but to everybody. And so I think a lot of times people don't really understand that whole idea that, I even put that even as far as being healthy. And I talk, in the mind and the body, because when you're physically healthy and you're mentally healthy, you're better for everybody in society.
True. But especially as moms and the moms that I work with, like it's counterintuitive, or they feel like oh, I should, I had a lunch date with my girlfriend and went for a pedicure so therefore I'm good for a while kind of thing. And I don't mean
Yeah.
that as self-care. That's not what I mean at all.
Right.
It's like daily
Right.
rituals and routines that you decide feed your soul so that you can be there for the people that you love most.
What would you say, because I know what those would be for me, but so our listeners, kind of what would be some of those like self-care things that you feel like would be like important things that people could do for themselves?
I say, to me, meditation is something that like I start my day with. It's 10 minutes. And I set an intention for my day, and it really helps me. And I think we're hearing more and more about meditation now. It's not so woo-woo. It's not so, and it's not about clearing your mind fully. It's about just taking that quiet space for yourself. So meditation is one. Second, I do a lot of walking. And, not everyone has the ability or the time to do that, but anything that you can do that physically gets you going for a few minutes even is, I think, really important. Journaling. I do a lot of journaling, writing out, getting those thoughts that keep going and going and going through the fingers, or even, again, hiring someone like myself who is there to listen with compassion and without judgment to you so that those thoughts that in those worries and things, get out of your mouth and into the air, and you have someone that is showing empathy while also giving you some direction and giving you some perspective, because I think sometimes we lose perspective as parents.
Absolutely. I think those are all great. And I've done meditation. I actually did, I don't know if I told you, I did a training with the Transcendental Meditation, which is very expensive, by the way, but I went through it when I was kind of in the middle of my health crisis, and I was dealing with my daughter. We both went and did the training on it. So I'm a big believer, and that's one of the things I always talk about is meditation. I think it's so good. And journaling, yes. I think that there's something powerful about training yourself to find the wins in your day. And when you can get to a point, I think, where you no longer necessarily have to do that anymore because you're able to recognize them, I think it's such an empowering thing. It's and all of those are just really great techniques. But I wanted to hear some from you, too, because I think it's so good. Because I talk all the time, and I'm like, sometimes you just got to hear from somebody else, And I think the listening ear thing is good because yes, people do need that. They want to know that. Sometimes people just need to be validated.
Absolutely. I just had a mom tell me that the other day. She's like, I just need to hear that I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And it's true. Sometimes we just over and over and over these things, and we never get a resolution. And it's not that I can always coach someone to a resolution, but it's more about getting it out, talking it through, having someone ask you the right questions that help you gain the perspective and find the answer. Because I think that there's so much noise in the world. We think our children have a lot of influence. So do adults. So do parents. And really what I do is help parents retune into their own intuition about the children that have come into their lives.
Right.
It's not about everybody else and what everybody else is doing and check the boxes. It's about retuning in to who you are and how this relationship benefits, your child, and you help guide them to their best selves. Whatever that is, doesn't have to look like everybody else.
Right. Oh, I love that. I love it. So good. So good. So let me ask you a question. Who would you say has been some of your greatest influencers over the years? Somebody that's just maybe made a difference in your life.
Aside from my mom, I would always say most of us.
Right.
Many of us probably would, but I would say my mom has always been my biggest cheerleader. But influence-wise, I've done a lot of work under and with the teachings of Dr. Shefali Sabari. She wrote a book called The Awakened Family, The Conscious Parent. I saw her on Oprah many years ago, and I very much value her work. Brene Brown.
Yes.
Many of those, many of those people that have done exploration of themselves and are helping other people to do the same. I think that the world is looking for truth now, and I think that authenticity and truth and vulnerability, when people have earned the right to hear your story, is absolutely where we're headed and what people really appreciate.
I would agree with you on that. I think the authenticity, yes, is huge, especially now. I don't know that it ever hasn't been, but I think now really we need it in this
and
world.
And it's courage. It's to have the courage to be that authentic person.
No, I love that. I love that. And those are good mentors too, by the way. I love that. So Let's talk about your book really quick. This book that you brought out, and you're working on another one.
I am.
So tell us, I guess, a little bit about this book, and then let's talk about this other one that's coming out.
So My Mother's Footprints, a story of faith, calm, courage, patience, and grace, is really my walk. It was my cathartic experience of walking through being a teen mom, and then the journey I took with my son through his addiction to alcohol. The book ends when I get him into inpatient treatment, but that, at the time that ended, but man, so much happened after that.
Absolutely.
So it's really, again, each of my children has taught me something. And so 5 words: faith, calm, courage, patience, grace. So I actually have it tattooed on my hip. So that's kind of where that book came from. This book, and I cannot tell you the title right now.
You don't have to tell us.
Yes, that's is really more a little bit more about my personal journey, but about more the people that I've coached in terms of the challenges that they're seeing and helping parents learn what the coaching process looks like. It's a business, more of a business related book, but I do pepper in some stories from my own parenting.
I love this. And when you were talking about, so much had happened after the end of that, it's so true. I think that when you're going through, and here's the funny thing I'm thinking about, most people, I feel like, not most, I shouldn't say most, many people go through life and they never really make that conscious decision to evolve. Like they never really make that decision to say, I want to be better. I want to do better. I just want to be a better human being is what I'm thinking about. Yeah. So they never make that conscious decision, and they just kind of go through life every day. They go to their job, they come home, and they think that that's what life is. And I'm like, I used to be that way. I really did. And when I went through, there's so many things that we could go back and ask this, like childhood things. And I'm thinking about all these things about how my mother used to tell me, as a child, that she would always tell me the opposite. Like if she would say, if I tell you you're not going to do it, you're going to go do it, but she'd always say, if you want to move mountains, you could move mountains, because that's how I was. I was very persistent as a child, But I think we have these things sometimes for some of us that come into our lives, and for some people, they have those experiences and they do nothing with those experiences. They just stop. They have that happen and they just say, oh, I had misfortune. I had bad luck. That's my life. And they accept it. Other people take those experiences and they go, what can I learn from this? And what can I do? I'm getting excited talking about this. This is what happens. They take those, he always laughs at me because I get excited when I coach people. It's like they take those experiences and they go, what can I do with that experience? How can I make a difference in that? Like, what is the lesson to be learned from that? And for me, I was telling somebody one day, it's like, I had this, obviously you had this like crisis, right? I had a crisis. We had this period of time in our lives where our lives were completely turned upside down. We were devastated. What do we do here? And somewhere in that, we rose above that, came out of that, and we go, okay, what are we going to do with this information now that we have this? So I love that you said it didn't stop. There was more after that, because there is more. There's always more after that. If you are in that mindset of continual growth, there's always more. And so when I wrote my book, I laugh about it now because I wrote the book, I got it out, and then I started thinking, I need to go do like a 2.0 because I got more stuff I need to put in there now that I learned.
And people have come to me and said, when are you going to write that next? When are you going to write the part 2 of this book? Because it's really raw and authentic, and it really was a cathartic experience for me too. Because in the crisis, I was just, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next? And that's how we are when we're in crisis, right? But taking that time to go back and review it, was it emotionally challenging at times? Absolutely. There's certain pages of that book I can open and I can read scenes from it, and I'm like, even though I know he's sober 10 years now, it's like, it's okay. But I can literally take myself back to that time. And yes, it's challenging, but again, I think this is where we grow. And we have that opportunity too. We can just go through something difficult and not learn anything from it, or just like, and I'm not sure why some people decide to, be that resilient and make that growth. And now I really feel like at this point, I'm on a path of continued growth, and I'm just excited about what's
awesome.
what's coming.
So awesome. Well, and to get to that point where you said, I don't know, I can tell you where I was, like when I had the moment of, I hate my life, we're not going to continue doing this. Like I have 2 pivotal moments. Like I know specifically where I was when this happened, like what happened. And I was like, look, it's this or this. Like I can't continue down this path. And now it's so funny, like you're talking about even these self-care things, and like, I have these things I do every day They're part of my life every single day. Like exercise is a part of my life every single day. Reading is a part of my life every single day. If I can't read, I listen to a motivational video. I mean, I have this routine in the morning that I do every day. And I don't even negotiate it anymore because I know that my mental well-being is dependent on me making sure those things are done daily.
Yep.
And so I think there's so much greatness.
Self-care is a discipline. I mean,
Yes.
self-care is not, again, about that occasional, lunch with a friend is great.
Yes.
That all those things are good, but that's not what it's about.
Right.
And self-care is hard because it is training yourself to do some of the things that you don't want to do.
Right.
And that's what I help parents, define for themselves too. First of all, giving themselves permission to take the time to take care of themselves.
Right. I love this. No, and I think it should be non-negotiable. I mean, in my eyes, it shouldn't be something that you bargain with. I mean, you do it because it's going to make you better. It allows. I can only speak for myself when I say that doing these things, I was a skeptic. I mean, I had been in the network marketing space for 18 years and heard everything about affirmations and goal posters and thought, oh my goodness, this is all hogwash, right? Would make one and then I'd be like, I'd put it in the closet. Now I'm a big believer in all that stuff because I know the power of those things. And I did tell somebody this story that when I was right at the very beginning of after I came through my health crisis and I went into my personal my personal development journey. I think we've been going on it for a while, but when I made the decision, I had written out an affirmation and I had looked at it probably for about a month or so. And then I tucked it away in a notebook. And this was in early 2018. And I was coaching a client last October 2019. And I pulled that paper out. I'd forgotten about it. And I pulled it out and 3 of the 5 things I had put on that affirmation had come true. They had actually come to pass. And some of them, they had already happened. And I was not even aware that they had happened until I looked at that paper. And I remember pulling it out and talking to this client. And I actually got chills because I was like, oh my goodness, like, you're not going to believe this. Like, hang on, hold on. We got to have a moment here because I just had like this success and did not even know. So I'm 100% with you on that whole self-care thing. I think it's so important. I love it. I love what you're doing, Kim. I think it's great. I think it's great. So if you were going to have to define, we did that part. Let's do some, I'm like losing my brain. We have so many great things here. Let's do some fun rapid fire here. So when you are not coaching your parents and helping them and doing this book, what else do you like to do for fun?
Let's see.
It's kind of hard now with the COVID thing. We have the before COVID and the after COVID. Like, what do we do during COVID?
Okay, another self-care thing that I do every night, and that's just me, is I pour a bowl of Smart popcorn or whatever that healthy pop is, and a glass of Chardonnay. And I've done that for my son is 33, so many, many years. That's my like wind down. That is my time to just chill, put my brain, on freeze. And I love it. So it's the last, 10 to 11 o'clock at night, Chardonnay and snack, and just, I'm done.
So that's going to lead me to my next question. Are you a morning or night person?
I think, oddly enough, for many years, I would have said for sure I'm a night person. But as I get older, like, I'm okay. I feel like my best writing and my best stuff is early in the day. So can I switch? Can I say
you can do whatever? Yes, you can do it. Well, and I do. I think you kind of have to. I think we do change. There's this whole book. I have not talked about this in so long. I got to tell you about this. There's a book by the sleep doctor. It's The Power of When. WHEN. I have not talked about this on the podcast in a while, but you just reminded me. So he says that our sleep patterns are based, like, we're one of 4 animals. We're either a dolphin, a wolf, a bear, or a lion. And it's based on our circadian rhythm. Like, some of us are just born, early lions. Some of us are wolves. We're night owls. But it can change. Like, most teenagers are wolves. And then as we get older, we can become lions. Like, I'm a lion. Lions, like, get up in the morning. They love breakfast. They're ready to go tackle the world. And so, yes, you can change. That book might be something fun for you to read. It's a little sciencey, but there's some good stuff in there because he'll tell you, like, when's the best time to exercise, when is the best time to close contracts, when's the best time to take your medicine, and it's all based on your circadian rhythm.
And that makes sense. And I think if you know yourself well, like I believe I do, like I would say I used to be a night owl. I think I'd get my kids down and I'd finally have some time, but I just have really switched, and now I tend to wake up early in the morning and just feel like I got to get something done. So again, not sleeping in does not really work for me anymore.
right,
I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm wasting the whole day away.
Yeah,
Like,
you're probably like me. You're like, okay, I'm going to sleep in today. It's 6:00. Oh, that's sleeping in today. I seriously, on the weekend, I turn because I get up at 5 every day. I wake up, like I will wake up before my alarm goes off at 5. I get up at like 4:30, 4:45.
okay, I'm not that early.
On the weekend, I'll be like, I'm going to turn my alarm off today. I'm going to try to sleep till 7. I can't even get past 5:30 half the time. I'm ready to go. Like I got too much to do during the day, but you know what? 10 in the morning. So, and the thing with that whole deal for me, like we talk about that, like if you're that morning person, then you probably do get more creative as the day goes on because you wake up and you're very task oriented, want to get things done, and then the creativity comes when you're not being as task oriented. So that would make sense. Okay, so cat or dog person?
Dog.
Dog. Do you have a dog?
We have 2. We
Okay.
have 2 miniature dachshunds.
Awesome. We have little dogs. I like it. Little dogs. I've never had a little dog. All my dogs are big. I've never had a little one, so I don't even know what that's like. I've had everything else that's little, but not a little dog. So I love it. All right. And what would you say is your favorite food?
Oh my gosh, I just pick one.
You could do more. You could be an equal opportunity.
If I had like one thing that I have to have or whatever, if I could only have one, it would be chocolate.
chocolate. I love chocolate.
I like dark chocolate actually.
Me too. Do you know that I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm just going to say like 40-something years, I never liked chocolate. Never liked chocolate. And then when I went on keto to fix my nerve condition, all of a sudden I got this profound love for dark chocolate.
It is good.
It is. And I could eat it. I could eat it all the time. And so it's this funny story. I told this when one of the guests was on here. At Walmart, I have these. I go order these and then I go pick them up. They have Reese's peanut butter cups that are sugar free.
Really?
Yeah. See, that's why I can eat them like all day. Like I have to like limit myself because it's like chocolate and peanut butter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good combination.
Isn't it? It's crazy. All right, and if you could be any character or superhero for a day, what would you pick?
Oh gosh. This is
is a
one
hard
that's
one.
going to be like stumping because, I want to say something that's genuine and really reflective. Like an easy one would be like
Right.
Wonder Woman or something like that. I don't know if this is what you meant, but I'm gonna say Oprah because I feel like she is a person who is genuinely working towards bettering the world in her space that she has and in the interviews that she does. And I admire people who are working hard to do that. So, I mean, I'm gonna go with Oprah.
You can pick whomever you choose. This is this is why I do this. It's so fun. It's like, every once in a while we'll get like the Superwoman,
Yeah.
Wonder Woman. We'll get those kind of cliche ones. But then we'll get like these random ones. Like we had one, just the one that I did right before this. She said, I don't have a character, but if I could pause life, that's the character I'd want to be able to pause life. And I'm like, okay, I get all kinds of different ones. And it's so fun because I think it really kind of, like you were saying, something authentic or whatever. I feel like it's who we think we would resonate with. Like, what would that look like if we put that out there to somebody, So I think that's cool. I think you can pick whatever one. I love it. So one last fun question I want to ask you. I say fun. I don't know if it's fun. If you were this is a tricky one. I always laugh about this one. If you were on a deserted island and you could only have one thing, your staples, you got food, you got your staples, but you could have one thing, what would be the one thing you'd bring? Be most important to you.
I'm gonna say books.
That's good.
It's like the
That's
one
what I would
thing
say.
it's the one. I'm a very active reader and I like to highlight and make notes and certain kinds of books but
Yeah. Any good books you're reading right now?
I know I should. Oh, I just finished an excellent book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. So good and so reflective. Like, I think that's what this book, just having finished this, we were out of town and I finished it in the 3 days that we were gone. I mean, The 5 Regrets of the Dying is just an excellent, reflective book. I mean, to listen to the stories of people who were just passing on and like this is what they're saying. And there's 5 categories that these go in. So anyway, excellent book.
I'll have to check that out. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's good. I know. I read a lot too, and I'm in the phase right now where I just finished reading Shemaine Nugent's book. I was flipping through hers. She's got a book all about these little 4-minute things that you can do to help yourself be better. And so I finished reading that, and so I'm like, I need to get a new book now. So this past couple weeks, I haven't had one yet. So I've been watching motivational videos like every day. And my poor kids, I'm sending them videos.
Yeah, I do the same thing to my kids. I try not to do too much because I know they don't watch them anyway.
Right,
but
they don't. But I'm like, you should really watch this. Just like a couple minutes of it.
just give it 5 minutes, and if you don't like it, then toss it. Fine. Just give it 5. I do the same thing all the time. But 5 Regrets of the Dying, I totally want you to pick that up.
I will pick it.
Good.
I will check it out. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, if our listeners wanted to find out a little bit more about what you've got going on, find the books, keep following up on the new book that's coming out, where do we send them?
reallifeparentguide.com. So that's only one L.
Okay.
reallifeparentguide.com is where you find everything about me. I'm also on Facebook at Real Life Parent Guide.
Perfect. Okay. And we'll make sure too, when we get this out, we'll make sure we tag you and get all the contact information so they can find you. Kim, this has been super fun.
Yeah, thank you.
I've had a great time in learning about you. We got to talk on the Zoom, so this is the first time we've gotten to talk like face to face. So this has been fun, and I always think it's so much better when you can do these in person.
Yes,
So
I appreciate you, Jennifer.
absolutely, thank you. You too, and you keep doing what you're doing. So I do want to say to our listeners, if you enjoy our podcast, please be sure you give us a rating both on iTunes and Facebook, because we can't do this without you. And then of course hit the subscribe button on YouTube. And with that, I'm going to leave you guys with a final thought. If you are facing a new challenge or being asked to do something that you've never done before, don't be afraid to step out. You have more capability than you think you do, but you'll never see it unless you place a demand on yourself for more. That's by Joyce Meyer. All right, you guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.